The last two NL RBI Kings, last year's NLCS MVP, and an expected MVP candidate for this season. The Braves outfield is going to be crazy deep once Ronald Acuña Jr. is back in the lineup. And the expectations before and after his return are the topic today on Battery Power TV. Cory McCartney along with Grant McAuley. And Grant, offensively speaking, there figures to be fireworks aplenty all season long from this Braves outfield.
Yeah, this is a group that certainly knows how to swing the bat, a group that has brought it in the past, and I think is going to be expected to bring it again when you think about this powerful Braves lineup. And the return of Ronald Acuña Jr. is one of the biggest storylines that we're going to be talking about in the 2022 season. It seems like we're going to have to wait a little while, but all good things are worth the wait. And when you think about a club that won the World Series without one of the probably 5 best players in baseball, and that's not a stretch at all, maybe he's going to be in the top 2 or 3, depending on what he does this year, that has to have you even more excited about what this club can do, considering who they're bringing back, who they've gone and got, and the way this club has been built by Alex Anthopoulos after the lockout to be ready to contend again and be ready to defend this World Series title. Acuña and this outfield are going to be bringing some pretty big lumber in 2022 if the Braves are to be successful.
You mentioned winning without Acuña, and I want to get into that in just a little bit. Certainly, he's going to be coming back from a complete tear of his right ACL, expected to debut in the first week of May, out since July 10th. Initially, he's going to be used as an outfielder and designated hitter. Obviously, the benefit of that position becoming a mainstay in the National League going to be a big factor for Acuña as he comes back. Certainly, the Braves retain Adam Duvall, who's headed towards an arbitration hearing sometime after opening day. They brought back Eddie Rosario on a 2-year, $18 million deal with a club option for a 3rd year, and Marcell Ozuna, who hasn't played since May 25th with the fractured fingers and, of course, his off-field issues. Initially, we're going to see Ozuna in left, Duvall in center, and Rosario in right. Again, the potential for firepower before Acuña. Eddie Rosario has a 30-homer season on his resume. So does Ozuna, and Duvall bashed 38 last season. What do you anticipate from this group early on?
It's going to be interesting to see how they're configured. Obviously, we learned in the postseason that Adam Duvall, even at the age of 33, can learn how to play center field on an everyday basis if need be, and he did it quite well. I mean, the guy won a Gold Glove last year, so we know his fielding prowess is up there. He also led the National League in runs batted in, as you mentioned, so he was doing it in the field. He was doing it at the plate, 38 home runs for Duvall. This is somebody that I don't think it's out of the question for him to put up a 2.5 or 3 WAR season. That's what he did last year for the Braves in that range, depending on Fangraphs and Baseball Reference. And Eddie Rosario, I don't know that he'll be the 900-plus OPS guy or the guy that went unconscious in the NLCS and just kept delivering big hit after big hit, or the guy that hit for the cycle essentially on 5 total pitches and 4 in a row against San Francisco last year. Eddie Rosario's legend grew very quickly for Atlanta, and it's exciting to have him back as a left-handed hitting component of this entire outfield group. But putting Acuña aside, knowing what we have from Duvall and what we saw from Eddie Rosario, the big question mark here is Marcell Ozuna. Again, he hasn't played since May of last year. He had the finger injury. He had his off-field troubles. All of those things have been sorted out as of now. Major League Baseball has concluded its investigation into Ozuna, and the Braves owe this guy $53 million over the next 3 years. So as of right now, the plan is for him to play some left field. I'm sure he'll be a DH, but which guy are you going to get? Are you going to get the Marcell Ozuna that in 60 games nearly won a Triple Crown in 2020? Or are you going to get the guy with a sub 650 OPS that struggled his way into May of 2021, broke his hand, and was not seen again for a couple of different reasons last year? What are you going to get from this guy? Because they're going to have to get something out of Marcell with Acuña out right now, and I think that's going to be an interesting story to monitor. And he's said all the right things and done all the right things so far with his teammates, and we'll see how this story develops as it goes forward into the season and he gets back to playing in front of the home crowd for the first time in some time and playing in big league ballparks for the first time in a while. I'd imagine there could be a mix of emotion, range of emotions when it comes to that.
Yeah, I mean, you and I kind of waited for this whole thing to play out, I think, before we decided to weigh in on it. I mean, certainly, you know, there's going to be a segment of Braves fans that frankly don't want to see him on the field. There's going to be a segment of every fan base that they visit throughout this entire next season and beyond that are not going to want to see him on the field. But he is back. And, you know, again, with the inclusion of the DH in the NL, when this lineup is at its optimum form, I mean, you know, he obviously, the guy has defensive limitations. He's projected to be one of 6 players in this lineup with at least 28 home runs And I mentioned the defensive limitations, and I mean, it's easy to go down this road, but I think you have to have some concerns early on about the defense before Acuña's back. I mean, if he misses between 22 and 29 games, depending, what point he comes back in that first week in May, Ozuna hasn't had a positive defensive WAR in a full season since 2015. Rosario has one positive defensive WAR in his past 4 seasons. So we talked about Adam Duvall, and certainly he showed the ability to play, above, I mean, the guy can play center field if you need him to play center field. But how many out of zone plays is Adam Duvall going to have to make because of those 2 guys in the side of him? Obviously the offense is going to be potent, but I think you have to look at that as an early concern, because in the month of April, you're going to see the Padres, the Dodgers, the Rangers, and depending on how many games Acuña misses, the Mets and the Brewers as well. So there's going to be some potent offenses that this team's going to have to deal with early, and that could be a lot of work for this outfield.
It will be. I don't think there's any 2 ways around it. However, all of these guys, I think, were signed more so for what they can do at the plate than what they can do in the field in terms of being a game changer. Duvall is a little bit outside of that particular scenario or that particular description. He is a good outfielder, playing out of position, though, in center field, but I think he played there capably and can hold it down for a while and maybe for the bulk of 2022. I don't know what it'll look like once Ronald Acuña Jr. comes back, because he can play center field. Do you want him to? He wants to and says he's able to. Then I guess you have to consider that as an option. You don't want to rule anything out. But the number one thing with Ronald is making sure he's healthy, and that's what the Braves are going to be doing, checking every box they have to along the way before he comes back. But when you signed Eddie Rosario and brought him back, it wasn't necessarily for a Gold Glove defender. It was for what he showed at the plate, what he brought to the club, and the fit that he is in the lineup. The same thing with Ozuna when he was brought over and then given that extension. It wasn't about what kind of defender he was going to be and winning a Gold Glove, which oddly enough he has done. It was about what is he going to add to the Braves lineup, and that is going to be what's asked, I think, more so of Duvall and Ozuna and Rosario than Duvall, who can field capably but has been known to go cold at the plate for spells. So I don't know. It's going to be an interesting balancing game for Brian Snitker. Guillermo Heredia is available as far as a defensive component that you could add in there. I don't think he's necessarily Gold Glove caliber himself, but capable enough to play any of the 3 outfield spots if you feel like you need to make that change and pull one of those guys out. And then once Acuña gets back, I'd love to see him in right field because I feel like that's where he has the most defensive value, but he can play any of the 3 outfield spots as well. And maybe thinking too much about that injury is something other people will do, and Ronald won't be doing as much of. And if he goes out there and plays, people are going to start to forget about, well, this was a guy who was hurt. He was hurt. But if he starts putting up the numbers and being Ronald Acuña Jr., you'll start feeling a lot better, a lot more confident just about what this kid is, which is a superstar, and you want to see him out there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, this is one of the things that the kind of the repercussions of trading for Matt Olson is that Christian Pache was your, center fielder of potentially this season and your future, and now you don't have that guy. That's the perfect fit if you think of one defensively in center field there, and you're going to have to make do. And certainly, Acuña is an elite athlete, and believing that he can go out there and do his thing, I don't think there's any question there. It's just, I mean, it remains one of the craziest aspects of the Braves World Series run. You mentioned it early on. They won without a guy who is one of the best players in all of baseball. And if you saw the workout videos, which were really only missing the Rocky theme, I think, I mean, the guy is on an absolute mission to make up for that lost time. And I think that kind of has to be a little bit of a concern as well, that maybe he's going to push too hard too early. So, certainly he won't be back until May. You can kind of play around with him being in DH and in the outfield. But Steamer, by the way, is projecting a career best 6.1 FWAR from him, despite the fact that he could miss up to 28 games, 40 home runs, 28 steals, and a 154 weighted run created plus. That's the height of any of the projection services. I mean, you really, honestly, Grant, you have to feel like the only real concern with Acuña, at least early on, is trying to pace himself.
I think pace is going to be important, and that's where the Braves are going to have to maybe take the lead a little bit on that. And maybe they have, because we've heard a different number of conversations once spring training opened. Of course, it was delayed, but then it was Ronald Acuña Jr.'s out there. He's hitting home runs that haven't landed yet down in Northport, and he's declared himself back. He has worked his rear end off. If you haven't followed Ronald Acuña Jr. and his workouts in the offseason, then I invite you to just Google search and find a few of those videos and the things he was doing. I mean, this was someone totally committed to getting himself back as soon as possible. And we're not even throwing the spring trading joke, best shape of his life out there. This is categorically perhaps the best shape Ronald Acuña Jr. has ever been in his entire life. And that should scare opponents once he comes back. I think he's committed himself to that. And the talent was already on the next level. So there's a lot to be excited about with it. I guess maybe you want to temper your expectations some. And I think if there is any one spot where I would say maybe those projections might be asking a bit much, it could be in the stolen base department. I don't think it's going to stop him going first to third or scoring from first on a double in the gap or what have you. But maybe Ronald won't be quite the, base running guy that he was a couple of years ago when he was flirting with 40-40. Maybe it's a little slow playing in that regard, not taking that extra risk and just allowing for the game to kind of play out, with things in front of him rather than feeling like he has to push it and have the pedal to the metal all the time. But, it's hard to rewire a player like this because this is a 5-tool player that does everything well. And that's what's made him one of the best players in all of baseball. So I think that as we wait for his return and anticipate his return and look forward to all the things that it means for the Atlanta Braves, I guess maybe we just have to put our expectations aside and just let him amaze us, because I feel like that's what we're in store for, regardless of whether he's flirting with a 30-30 or a 40-40 season.
I think people will take 2020 if the 20 is plus 20 for the 40 home runs and get him 20 steals. People want to win a little more than that. Yeah. And now, in danger of taking a little detour down hot take lane here, in the span of days, we watched Atlanta lose Freddie Freeman and then Matt Ryan, of course, 2 former MVPs. And, you and I have seen this on Twitter. No disrespect to Atlanta United's Joseph Martinez or the Hawks' Trae Young, who's a certifiable superstar. But, the Braves are the most successful team in the city of Atlanta. And this year, with Freeman gone, Grant, I honestly, I think you have to feel like this is the year that Acuña is going to make it clear this is his city.
Yeah, I said this, and look, a city needs more than one superstar if everything's going well. And that's why it is great to have other guys that immediately come to mind when you talk about those other clubs. I think the biggest thing that I would say about the week that was a week or two ago for the Braves and for the Falcons and for the city of Atlanta and Atlanta sports and all the things that weird multiverse encompasses is it's just strange to see 2 fixtures of 2 clubs, 2 well-known former MVPs, leaving and putting on a different uniform. They both managed to put on pretty much the same color blue, which is also ironic and weird. And I just thought about that. And I don't think it means anything. But either way, it's just strange to see the Braves without Freddie Freeman. We'll get used to it. It'll be strange to see the Falcons without Matt Ryan. We'll have to get used to it. And they'll have to come up with a better plan for a successor than the Braves had, because Atlanta had already made its plan. And Alex Anthopoulos was moving in that direction already. But I know everybody's exhausted and tired of hearing about the saga that was Freddie Freeman. I know some folks that are Braves fans, they don't care what the Atlanta Falcons are doing, and I can't really blame them. I watch them on purpose, and I have no idea some seasons why I do that. But, it is no disrespect to what Trae Young has been doing, to what Joseph Martinez has been doing. I think it's great to have a bunch of young superstars who can be around for a while and give the city some continuity, some new faces of sports in Atlanta. There's nothing wrong with that. And I tweeted this out. I got some of the responses. Some people are like, oh, no, you're forgetting about Trae Young. Oh, let me tell you about Joseph Martinez. Look, I get it. I'm just telling you that Ronald Acuña Jr. is a special kind of player, and he is going to be on a mission to show Braves fans, the National League, all of Major League Baseball, his home country of Venezuela, every other country around the world, and anybody who might be tuned in from outer space, that he's one of the best players in baseball. I think that's what's exciting, the most exciting about it when you start talking about the Braves and their future. And really the present right now is it's Ronald Acuña Jr.'s time to really take this team and take it to that next level. This is his moment to stand up and become the face of the franchise, and that's what I fully expect.
If I had to ask you, though, one question that you have that's the biggest question with this outfield group, what is it?
I think we've already covered it. It's just how do you mix and match these guys without feeling like you've got that true center fielder and without feeling like you've got to ask a lot of Ronald Acuña Jr. As I talked about this, and we talked about this on the show throughout the offseason, I was like, man, I don't want to see him out there in center field having to cover extra ground. But it's been pointed out, and I know this, I was watching it, he did get hurt playing right field. So an injury can happen really anywhere. You can't wrap him up in bubble wrap. You can't just say, hey, he's just going to DH for a year, because he's too valuable in the field. And this is just one of those things where he's got to go out there mentally, get past the whole injury thing. I don't think that's going to be a problem. it may take some of us, the non-athletes, the spectators, the media members, the prognosticators, and all of the people that watch the sport for a living or otherwise to get comfortable again with, all right, I see it. He hit second. He has no intention of stopping. He's going to slide head first into third, and I just need to not worry about this. It's going to be fine.
Well, GM Alex Anthopoulos' wizardry at the trade deadline last year turned the Braves outfield into a second half strength, led the NL in home runs, proved a major factor in the postseason. This time, it figures to be a strength from the very start and truly dangerous once Ronald Acuña Jr. gets back. The March to opening day continues, and we'll have much more for you here on Battery Power TV. So get to the Battery Power YouTube channel, turn on those notifications, and get those nice little alerts every time that we drop a new episode. Until next time, he's Grant McAuley. I'm Cory McCartney, and we'll see you soon, Braves Country.